Hello. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for joining me on my exploration of the wide world of pens. I've been focused recently on nibs, and I've been using eBay as my primary source of content. And I've already reviewed two of the pens that I focused on nibs with. The Platinum President with the C nib, and that was a challenge. The Waterman Carène with the oblique fine nib, which didn't meet my expectations. So this is the third pen in the series. Nice, ubiquitous white box. If we open it up, we'll see a nice little plastic pen case. Pull it off, there's that little velvet pouch, a cartridge, and we see the pen. So the first thing you'll notice is it's a gold colored pen. The shape is probably very recognizable. Yes, it's a Parker 45. And I did give a glimpse of this in an earlier video. Here's the auction that I won on eBay. It was delivered fairly quickly. It came in this nice padded envelope inside of, that case and everything. So it was very well protected. And what was also nice is I always appreciate getting a note along with the pen. A note written with the pen. And I happened to communicate with Rob. He's a pen pal of mine. And he included another personal note to me. I want to give a shout out to Johansson Design. I'm going to provide a link in the description to his seller site on eBay. And I would suggest, if you're interested in vintage pens, follow him and also set up email alerts so when he puts up a pen for auction, you'll get notified for it. You can take a look and see if it's a pen you're interested in. People ask me a lot of times where to buy vintage, and there's a lot of websites you can go to, and they do excellent work, and they have some nice pens, but I think Rob sells at a very, very good price, a very, very competitive price, and you get a personal experience, which is also very nice. And I can vouch for him. I've known him for well over a year now. So follow him on Twitter so you can see a lot of the things that he posts, and I'll give you that link also in the description, when you might be able to snag a pen as good as this one. So I was following a few pens that he had on auction. He sells occasionally on eBay, but I got this at, I thought, an excellent price. It's in very, very good condition. Pull off cap, and we'll see why I got it. And that is a unique nib for a Parker 45. It's an R. So I have a similar nib, but it's labeled O for oblique. So I need to check up what the R stands for, but that's a nice bit of tipping material on there that's very well ground. So I look forward to inking this puppy up. Converter, just a standard aerometric converter, which I'm fine with, but I'm just impressed with the quality of this pen and the shape that it's in. So I'm very happy that I'll be able to put this nib to paper and explore how it works. So this 45 was the first pen I ever got that had an oblique nib on it, and I fell in love with it immediately at the pen show. What was it, the DC pen show? And Susan Worth sold me this pen. I actually traded a vintage dip nib and some cash for the pen. The price on it I thought was on the high side. It was actually almost twice the price of what I paid for this gold version. And if we pop up the cap, we'll notice the nib is similar, but it has that O designation on the back. So let's compare it to what's in the other one. And it's not quite as broad. The same type of angle. And I really enjoyed this pen also. You know, I hoped the Waterman Carène nib would have been similar, but these actually are a little bit soft. They feel great on paper. A much more pleasant writing experience than the Carène. So I just thought you'd be interested in how I focus on nibs and pens, and that's what I get motivated for without just trying to find a great resin, which is also something to motivate me. A year or so ago, I went on a buying spree of Parker 45s. My main objective was to get a variety and to have a bunch of nibs, and I've actually just bought nibs. It was a good buy a couple months ago on some nibs alone. I mean, this pen certainly lends itself to a great variety of colors, different metals. You know, people use them as giveaway items, which is always a good indication of the pen. You know, it came in all of these iterations. It was made for quite a number of years. And I think they're excellent writers. They're good performers. I mean, people talk about buying Estabrooks, and I think this is a better buy. The pen is a little bit on the small side, but so is an Estabrooke. But I think they're very comfortable to write with, and they're extremely reliable, bulletproof, day in and day out writers. And that's what I think Parker expected from the design, and they delivered for the years that this pen was made. So I might go into detail on these at some time in the future, but for now we're just going to look at them as an interesting collection. So here are 3 pens that I will compare. I've already shown the 2 Parker 45s. This gold one certainly does have some high-end features to it, like the little area to engrave your initials. I polished it up a little bit, put a little bit of wax on it, so I think it'll stay looking nice for a while. Adjust some lights a little bit. I'm not necessarily a gold pen fan, but I certainly do like this one. And the one with the plastic barrel, I think, is a lower end pen. I'm certainly probably cost less money. But if I look for any type of markings as to what type of gold this is, it doesn't say anything anywhere. And generally, pens like this that were higher end were made of gold filled. So my guess is this is just a heavy gold electroplate, which Parker, Waterman, and Schaefer and company were known for doing that. And it lasts a long time, and it obviously looks good. The Lamy is its own design. That clip is very reminiscent of a clip of a Lamy 2000. Nice L at the top, but it's not really aligned with anything. It's kind of at an angle. And the other interesting thing I find, at the end of the barrel, they all have that little indent in it, which I think is part of the injection molding process. Obviously, there's a gate there in the middle where the plastic probably entered the mold. And the way this is designed, it's in that recess, so therefore they don't have to clean it up as much as they would if it was like a dome. Or so I just thought it was interesting to compare these. Now we're going to look at the nib end on these 3 pens, which have a lot of similarity, but all 3 of them write differently. As we look at these nibs up close, we'll see that the O nib is actually 1/10 of a millimeter wider than the R nib. Visually, when I first looked at them, I thought it was the reverse. And the Lamy 27 nib is basically the same width as the R nib. Considering the R nib is considered medium, I don't consider 1.3 millimeters medium, but that's more of a broad. But they do make a broad oblique, which would be an interesting nib to try. Looking at the feed side, we'll see some similarities there as to how that tipping material is ground. And when it's ground like that, it makes for a sensitivity to angle. So if you get off angle, the pen won't write as well. And that's what differentiates a nib like this that is ground versus a nib that would have round tipping material, which would be less sensitive to angle. These nibs are more challenging to write with, but I think more rewarding. So the ink choice is always an interesting one. I was going to go with Gold Antiqua, but I've used that recently, so I went with an ink more on the brown side. I've had this for a while. The color card shows it's kind of a nice light brown, kind of a walnut brown. I think it'll have some interesting shading, at least from my prior experience with it. The chromatography shows it to be a pretty pure brown. It just lightens up, and obviously there's a drop of water on this afterwards, and I would say it's not water resistant, but it wasn't expected to be. So we're ready for the writing sample, but let's do a little summary of the pen. I think the Parker 45 is an iconic design, and I think the gold with those chase lines in it just really brings out that design well as the light plays on it. The cap just really snaps in place very securely. It's not going to come off accidentally. That section feels good in the hand. I like the diameter of it, and unlike the Koran, this pen is on the light side. I can write with this for long periods of time. I can move my fingers up and down. It does post very deeply and very securely, and it actually almost feels better, the balance posted, and that little bit of added weight feels good. We'll give you the dimensions of the section. It's a long section, and we'll give you the weights of the pen so you can put them in perspective. And we can watch the light play on that nice gold-plated finish. I forgot to turn the camera on. So hopefully you've heard this is a smooth writer. This nib is going to be a little sensitive to angle, so you need to be aware of that. I'm going to rate it at a 9.7. I generally don't rate what I consider to be kind of in the vintage family, but I thought this was worth a rating. 2 checks for the nib, a check for the iconic design, and a check for the build quality. I mean, it's just very well made, and this will last forever. Consistent writer. And you get some really nice character to your writing, which is great, and that's what this nib does. But this nib is also sensitive to angle. So when you're writing and you turn it, you know, you can stop writing depending upon where you are with that nib. So if you're someone who turns your nib while you write, this is going to be a challenge for you. But if you keep it at that right angle, to me it's very rewarding. But you can see even I get off that, and it's hard writing over the camera. Hopefully you've enjoyed this look at an interesting pen and a nib that you may not have been aware of or may not have seen before. So we're going to reach the end of this video, so thank you for watching. Hopefully you have many great writing experiences and explore this incredible wide world of pens that we are very fortunate to be able to dive into, experience, put some ink on paper. You know, thoughts on paper are a lot different than thoughts in your head, so that's what I find very nice about writing. So see the end for now. Be safe, be healthy, and be happy. We're going to say bye until the next video. Yes, and you do have to keep that nib at the right angle. Don't let writing over the camera bother you, but at least you get to see that that nib requires that right angle to lay down a nice line.